The Comfortably Zoned Radio Network presents Weighted Donuts with your hosts Wayne Unger and Craig Stier.
And welcome back to this week's show of Weighted Donuts. I'm Wayne Unger. I'm here with my co-host Craig Stier. And tonight's guest is former Major League pitcher, 1982 National League Rookie Pitcher of the Year, John D'Acquisto. John, welcome.
Actually, it was 1974, but it was.
I'm so sorry. You're right.
Nice way to get started, Wayne.
I wanted to make you a little younger. You a little younger.
I'd still be pitching now if it was in 1982. You know that.
You probably would, especially if you were still throwing 104 miles an hour.
Exactly.
John, we're thrilled to have you on.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks for coming aboard.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know right off the bat, you're the 17th pick overall in 1970 amateur draft. Where were you when you found out you were drafted? And we had Ron Bloomberg on a few weeks ago.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And he was telling us he was the number one pick overall. And
right.
You think about the draft now. It's televised and whatnot. I know baseball still is. The baseball draft isn't like the NFL draft or the NBA draft. But I'm trying to get a feel for what it was like back in 1970. You're a kid. I mean, you're 18 years old.
I was 18. Yeah, I was 18. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my mom and dad and my brother and my little sister, who couldn't have been more than 8 years old at the time, and we were just on pins and needles because we knew the draft was happening, but there was no way to follow it. We just had to wait by the phone, and we were told to wait. And it's kind of archaic, but that's how it was back then. And we were sitting around talking, and it got real quiet all of a sudden, and then the phone rang. And my mother picked up the phone, and she screened the call, and she asked who it was, and the person on the other side said it was George Genovese. And she goes, "Hello, George, how are you?" And he then promptly told my mother, "We have drafted John, number 1, 17th overall pick in the nation." And my mom started crying. And I go, "Whoa, that's good news. It's either good news or bad news. It's one or the other, because I couldn't hear what was going on the other side, but, till she told me later. But it was an interesting situation, and she handed me the phone, and George got on and says, "Hey, we drafted you number 1. You're our first-round pick." And I went, "Wow, okay, so that's it." And he goes, "Yeah, that's it. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll bring you a contract. We'll start talking about contract and where you're going to go play and all that. And so be ready." And I said, "Okay, fine." And that was it. No more, no less. The next day in the paper, of course, it was posted in the paper, and so then that's where we got our information. The paper was on the kitchen table where the family was sitting around, and we were, throwing the paper around, reading it, and there it was. And remember, Mike Ivey was the number 1 pick overall that year, and the Padres were waiting to get me on the second round. Like I would have been the second player picked overall if they were going to be able to get me, and that never happened. The Giants picked me up, and from that point on, I was really happy the Giants did get me, even though I did want to play in San Diego. It would have been great, but I ended up playing in San Diego anyway, and Mike went to the Giants, so it kind of worked out that way anyway. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yep.
What am I gonna say?
So, I'm just you're out in Arizona now?
Yes, I am. I live in Phoenix, Arizona now, and I'm working for Major League Baseball, and I am the field timing coordinator, which is pace a game, and also the headset replay tech for the umpires for replay. And I've been doing this I'm in my third year now, and I enjoy it tremendously because I get to see all my old buddies, and it's kind of fun. It keeps me out of trouble, so I've been very busy with that, and I work almost year round for Major League Baseball, and we do the experiments in the off season with the AFL, the Arizona Fall League. And where all the young superstars are coming in to try to advance themselves to the big leagues. That's where we test everything. We test everything in that league. So I work almost year round. I got about 2 months off, and that's about it during the holidays, and then I'm back at it again.
I'm always seeing your sketches on Facebook. I mean, how much of that is a part of your life? And unfortunately, Craig has no clue about your artwork because I cannot get him on Facebook. Not at all.
Okay. Well, I have a website, Craig, that you can look at. It's not on Facebook, so it's.
Go ahead. I'm gonna zap it up right now.
Okay, it's http www.artworkbyjohndiaquisto.com. Okay. And that is a big part of my life. It started off as a hobby back in '96. I was taught by some of the best pencil sketchers known to man. Unfortunately, it was when I was incarcerated and had nothing to do, and I asked them to teach me, and they did with the number 2 pencil. And so it started there, and I worked at it afterwards, just as a hobby, nothing special. Well, I drew a couple of pictures of Thurman Munson and Derek Jeter and Lou Gehrig, and my boss saw them, and who worked for MLB, and he goes, "Well, those are really cool. Did you do those?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he goes, "Wow, can I have those?" I said, "Yeah, you can have them." "Sure, no problem." So I finished them up. They were just pencil sketches at the time, and so I colored them in and added the shading and everything that needed to be done, and handed them. They're now up on his wall, and that's how it started. And he goes, "You need to get these out with Major League Baseball, get approved to get a license." And so we worked on it and talked to Michael Posner, and Michael Posner set me up with Legendary Sports Prints in Philadelphia with Dan Duffy. And Dan and I have been working together for the past couple of years, and I finished my first piece on Bryce Harper, which you'll see on the website.
I'm looking at it right now.
That was my very first piece, yeah. And then I just finished a second piece recently. I submitted it to Dan, for approval, and it's on Clayton Kershaw. You won't see that on the site because I haven't posted it yet, but I finished it, and so I've done a number of different things from scenery. If you check my main.
Andre Dawson. I'm looking at Andre Dawson. Terrific.
Yeah. There's Andre Dawson. I did a main theme album there that you can click on. Lou Gehrig. I've done a number of pieces, and what I do is I combine digital, with the stylus through iPad or through Microsoft Surface, Microsoft Edge. Pencil sketch, Autodesk pencil sketch. There's a lot of programs that I use, and what I do is I then take them there, and then I actually pencil sketch them by hand also. So I do it digitally with the stylus, and then I do it freehand and add my touch to it. And it's a combination of old world and new world, and they've been coming out fantastic, and they're getting to be pretty popular. and it takes a lot of my time. Like most of my
beautiful.
Yeah, for most of my off time is I'm drawing. I'm at the drawing table, and so it's a lot of fun for me. It keeps me busy, but I enjoy it tremendously. It is a very soothing passion that I have in doing my illustrations, and I enjoy it, making people smile. That's the main thing.
I like this. I'm looking at this. This is really great. I have an idea for you. Do a book of just teammates, your old team.
It's coming.
You know?
It's coming. Yeah, I played with 11 Hall of Famers.
I was counting them earlier tonight.
Yeah, 11 Hall of Famers and quite a few other individuals through my career, and that's one of the great things of playing 12 seasons and 10 years in the big leagues. You play with a lot of guys, and there were quite a few, and we're all friends today, and the ones that are still with us, and of course we have lost quite a few in between, but it was a real rewarding career that I have no regrets of the career that I had.
I'm looking. Go ahead.
I'm looking at the drawing of Gary Carter. Is that Yogi Berra with him?
Yes, it is.
Or the Field of Dreams?
Yogi Berra and the kid. There was a shot that was taken when Mets had a day at I think it was at Shea before it was Citi Field, and it was like the last day, and Yogi was there and Kid was there, and I call that piece Yogi and the Kid Eights, because they both wore number 8. And when the Kid passed away, he was a really close friend of mine. In fact, I'm still in very close with Sandy, his wife, and it was heartfelt when Yogi passed away that I saw that picture and I decided to sketch it within the Field of Dreams, because that was Gary Carter's favorite movie. If it wasn't every baseball player's favorite movie, that and For the Love of the Game, I mean, were two of my favorite movies of the new world. I just saw that and I said, wow, why don't I put the cornfield and see if I can sketch this portion of Yogi and the Kid going to the cornfield and Gary helping Yogi. And, it was a direct reversal of Yogi helping the Kid. Okay? So it came out really good. It came out really good. And it's one of my favorite pieces. I gave that one to Sandy. Yeah, she wanted it, so I gave it to her. I gave her the original. So
wow.
That's
now, I'm looking at two of these, and I'm looking at actually Gibson and Koufax. And
two of my favorite pieces.
now Gibson is like, he had a motion that like today would drive pitching coaches crazy. The way he it would just drive people crazy. And then on the other hand, like Sandy Koufax seemed to be like, I read his biography, and the way he explained pitching, the way he uses it, like, your arm is like a catapult, and
that's right. Yep.
And to take, so, and you look at it, so you look at the two. I mean, today, do you think, do you think, how can I say it? Do you think the way pitching coaches and teams are so hell-bent on motions, 3/4 over the top, do you think that's might be part of the problem with pitching injuries?
I think the major part of the problem is that pitchers don't use enough of their legs. They don't push off. If you look at that picture of Koufax, you look at Gibson, they're pushing off that rubber as much as they can. The energy wave of a pitching motion starts from the ground up. When that foot plants into the ground, your plant foot, you push off to generate the energy forward, which is the ball is going to go forward in a linear fashion. And when that plant foot hits the ground, it shoots an energy wave up your body. And a lot of pitchers are using this motion of stand tall and fall, which is a developmental motion that Tom House invented. And because Tom is the guru of Major League Baseball, pretty much for Jim Andrews, etc., and not to say it's not a bad motion, but since that motion's been implemented, there have been a number of injuries to the arm, Tommy John surgery especially. And that's because if you don't use your legs, you put too much undue stress on your arm, and you're just throwing mostly with your upper body. And most of the pitchers I see today that are pitching are all stand tall and fall. They'll set themselves and load themselves, and then they'll just drop their leg down. They don't take a stride. They don't push off their back foot. And when you don't push off your back foot, how are you going to generate the energy to take the stress off the arm? It's just common sense, and it just surprises the living daylights out of me that no one's ever seen that. And go ahead.
I was going to. Do you think is that the way that they're taught, or do you think it's because a lot of it today is they want to hide the ball more. They're looking for an angle to hide the ball. Do you think that's part of it too, that they're using that motion?
No. They're using that motion because a lot of them were taught in that era. Prior, you're looking at the Mark Pryor era. You're looking at the Kerry Woods era, John Schmaltz era. That's when Tom was very prevalent in his teachings. When he was a pitching coach, and he was having some success. And yet, now it's like you look at the pitching motion the way it was when I was playing, and you look at how the guys had longevity and pitched a number of innings and very few injuries. And the human body, in my last recount, was it hasn't changed very much. It might have gotten even stronger. The other thing that could be a problem too is that they lift weights after they pitch. I've never been a big fan of lifting weights after you throw 6 or 7 innings because your arm gets really tight, and then you're going to go and lift weights, and your lactic acid buildup restricts your arm and tightens it up even more, and that puts a lot of stress on the collateral ligament. Unless you're doing leg work, they're doing full body workouts. And stretching is what you need to do. And I see some of it, but I don't see a lot of it. I see it prior to the game. I don't see it after the game. Of course, I might not be seeing what goes on in, the clubhouse afterwards, but I hear more clanging of weights after games than I do stretching. So you got a number of things adding to this problem that people just want to tend to ignore. No, well, we can't figure out what the problem is. Well, the problem's staring you right in the face. Quit lifting weights after you pitch. Number 1, use your legs. Number 2, primarily, I'd go number 1, use your legs. Number 2, quit lifting weights after you pitch. And you think about the stress. Games? Did I throw in between games?
Did you throw a lot? Did you throw more in between games than the pitchers do today?
No, I kept my schedule. I was on a 5-man rotation or a 4-man rotation when I was 21 years of age. I threw on the second day. I would take a day off. I would throw on the second day, but every day I would run a lot. I would run. I don't see pitchers running. I don't see them running a lot. And if they do, I know I've been at the ballpark at 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't see them out there running very much. And if they're doing anything, they're either working on machines or something inside in the gym that they have for them, on treadmills. But that's not the same as taking your body out and running it foul line to foul line 22 times as hard as you can and getting your legs strong. You've got to train according to your position. If you are a starting pitcher and you're looking at going 6+ innings, you need to train accordingly. If you're a reliever, you should train accordingly. Just run 10 foul lines. Don't tire yourself out. You may need to pitch. But you still want to do something to get your legs. Your legs are the most important thing of a pitcher's body. Everyone thinks you got to build up your arm to prevent the injuries. It's not true. You have to build up your legs and your abs and your back and your glutes to prevent the injury. That's where most of the support's going to come in. The arm's just along for the ride. And a lot of people don't realize that. I studied kinesiology and biomechanical engineering. I know what it takes. I learned from Gideon Ariel. He told me exactly what it takes. And he said the energy starts from the ground up, not from the top down. So you look at that, and a lot of guys throw with their upper body only. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. I see a lot of it, too. A lot of it.
Let's get back to your career. You grew up in San Diego. There was no major league team there. Who did you root for growing up?
Los Angeles Dodgers on my transistor radio with an earbud. That's why I became Vin Scully. You got it. Vin Scully and Farmer John hot dogs. And Union Oil 76. My dad took me to a Dodger game, a doubleheader, and up in Los Angeles to see Sandy Koufax pitch the first game and then Roger Craig pitch the second game. And I remember I got a foul ball, so I went down where they were in the Coliseum at the time. And I went down to the side, and they were warming up right next to the bleachers right there. So I asked Roger Craig, would you sign my ball for me? And he goes, I'll sign it for you after the game. I'm getting ready for the game right now. I said, okay, fine. So I went back a little disappointed, but went back up, sat down, watched the other game. We didn't know where to go. The players' interest, where is it? We had no clue. So we drove home. And about 10 years later, I was getting a look-see by the San Diego Padres before the draft, and Roger Craig was down there with I believe it was Preston Gomez at the time, who was pitching coach. And so I went out there and threw, and I brought the ball with me. I asked Roger to sign it. And he goes, sure, I'll sign it for you. I said, that's a special ball. When I was about 8 years old, you didn't sign it for me because you were getting ready to pitch a game. You got to be kidding me. It hit the papers. And Roger signed my ball for me. And we laughed about it. We laughed about it all the time. Roger's a good friend, and we laugh about that all the time. It's kind of a funny story. But, yeah, I was, like, under the sheets with the light, flashlight and my transistor and my scorebook, keeping score of the game, listening to Vin. And my mom used to come in and go, will you go to bed? I am in bed. No, I mean go to sleep. And I'd go, oh, okay. After the game's over, I'll promise you I'll go to sleep. And I'd wait till that last out. And I went to bed every night that I could, listening to the Dodgers. And I remember Pee Wee Reese, and all the gang that were there, Koufax and Drysdale, Johnny Padres, and and it was a great time to warm up, and warm up to the game and get to know it, and being able to listen to Vin Scully was a real treat, not knowing who he's going to become. Vin is, I got to see and work Vin's last game at Glendale. So I was sitting there with him, He was right next to me in the other booth, and so I was very honored to be able to be there and work that last game with him in spring training. It was quite fun.
That's great. So you were very, very fortunate growing up and following the Dodgers in your early teens. Those were the Koufax, Drysdale years. You mentioned Roger Craig. You ended up playing for Roger Craig in
That's right.
San Diego in '78.
That's right. And that was like in '77. This is a funny story also. 1977, I came over in May for a trade with Butch Metzger, and they traded me for Metzger, and then Pat Scanlon was a throw-in. We came over to San Diego, and Johnny McNamara was the manager. Roger Craig was the pitching coach, and at that particular time, the Padres weren't doing very well. And I did pretty good, but I had gotten a slight injury in my oblique. And so I got sent to Hawaii for a rehab assignment and did very well, came back. Well, the following year in spring training, later on, Johnny Mack got fired and Alvin Dark became manager. And Alvin didn't like me too much because I was a bachelor and I didn't want to adhere to his request about finding Christianity because I was already Catholic. I didn't have to go any further. But it was there was a lot of pressure put on me. And I then heard later on that Alvin ran into my brother at the airport, and my brother was talking to me. He says, "I'm going to send your brother down to AA. He'll be done." And my brother said, "Well, that's not fair." And he said, "Well, that's what we think he needs." And so my brother came back and told me, and I went to spring training. Actually, in '77, I went down to play in Mexico. I played for Tijuana, and I was 9-0 with a .91 earned run average and 127 strikeouts, and I was just blowing away the Mexican League in the wintertime. And I went to spring training pretty much ready to go. I was fresh and ready to go and pitching in the season. So I took that season. So I had a early spring training in that winter ball session, and I came in and Alvin was flat set on not pitching me and not even using me at all, and he was going to send me down when the first cut was coming. Well, the first cut was when we were going on the Tucson trip, down to Tucson. And that was one of the weirdest, surreal days I've ever seen in my career. And I'm sure it was the same way for a lot of the players. Because at that particular stage, the aspect of Roger Craig getting on the bus and sitting in the manager's seat, when I walked on the bus, I said, "What's going on, Rod?" He goes, I said, "Well, where's Alvin?" He goes, "Sit down." I go, "Okay." He goes, "Alvin got fired." I go, "What? In spring training?" He goes, "Yeah, he got fired. Get on the bus. You're going to go to Tucson with us. But I can't tell you anything else. I don't know what's going to happen with you. All I know is you're going to pitch today, and I just want you to give me one last good shot, and we'll talk at that time." And I said, "Okay." So we drive all the way down to Tucson from Yuma and get ready for the game, and I'm sitting in there. Howard Cosell happened to be there. He was getting his information for Monday Night Baseball, if you remember, back in the 70s. And so we were joking around with Howard, pulling tricks on him and laughing and having a good time. And I look across the way, and there's Chuck Estrada, Roger Craig, and Bob Fontaine. Well, Chuck got promoted up to being the pitching coach. So they're waving like at the whole dugout, but I point to myself, and Roger shakes his head yes. And so I walk over, and I go, oh, here we go. This is it. I'm getting cut. I know. Here's the old song and dance story. All right. So I walk over there, and they got this gloom look on their face, and Bob Fontaine, he's kind of looking away, and Roger goes, you know, Johnny, he says, this is one of the hardest things to do as either a coach, a manager, or whatever, but it's the hardest thing for me to do. And I said, so you're going to send me down? He goes, no, we're keeping you. I go, oh. So, and my bag was packed. Get this. My bag was packed in the clubhouse. Okay. I had a pink slip on it. They got Doc Matai, the traveling secretary, to put a pink slip on my bag just in case I went in there first. Oh, they were pulling my chain big time. And so Roger goes, we're going to start you off in the bullpen, and then we're going to work you slowly back into it, and then we're going to set you loose. And I said, oh, God, thank you. Well, that day I pitched against Cleveland. It was in Tucson at the time. I pitched against Cleveland. I pitched a couple of innings and did very well. In fact, I had to face Boog Powell. I remember that. And the Booger missed a high heater I threw. It had to be over 100. And so going back was a lot of fun, but I didn't pitch for almost the first month of the season. And then finally Roger put me in a game that was kind of blown out of proportion, and yet the bases were loaded at the time when I came in. And I struck out the side, and I walked off that field. I was like, whoa. And then 2 days later, he puts me in another game. This time it's against the St. Louis Cardinals, and bases were loaded, and we were ahead 4-3. And I go, oh, well, this is kind of interesting here. He's giving me a shot here. Well, I struck out the side there, too. And I was so pumped. I think the first fist pump was from me. I think if anyone was standing in front of me, I might have knocked them into cheap seats, but I was so pumped. I jumped high off the mound and ran off the field, and Roger grabbed me by the shoulders when he got in, and he goes, welcome back. And that was it. From that point on, it was, I didn't give up a run for a long time. I only gave up 21 earned runs that season in 100 innings. I think 98 innings, 2.13 earned run average and over 104 strikeouts, which was for an average of about either 10.7 or 13.8. I can't remember, but it was high. And I only gave up 60 hits in 98 innings. And I'd hardly walked anybody.
You've got a good memory. You've got a great memory. That was, without a doubt, one of your better seasons. But in '74, you were named Rookie Pitcher of the Year. What do you remember about that year? Because that had to be a pretty special year.
Oh, it was extremely special because it was my first full year in the big leagues, and there were a lot of bright spots. In that 12-14 record, I had 10 consecutive no decisions, giving up less than 2 runs, or 2 runs or less, and going more than 7 innings. 10 consecutive no decisions. There's 2 other guys, Randy Leach and John Candelaria, are tied with me in that record. I don't know if it's been broken since, but we won every one of those no decisions. So add those to the 12, there's 20 and 14 right there that I participated.
I guess that's why you were rookie. Why you were in large part why you were voted the Rookie Pitcher of the Year. That's extraordinary. Those numbers.
Yeah, and then that was the third year where I struck out 167. And remember, I coming up from the minors in Fresno, I struck out. Actually, in Decatur, I struck out 245, and then Fresno, I struck out 244. And then the next year I struck out, I think it was 187 and plus 39 when I got to the big leagues in 73. and there's another 200-plus season, and then 167, and broke the rookie record that year. That was since 1906. I guess it was Ruben Gomez or something. I forget what the record was, but there were a lot of good things that happened that year. And
John,
I just
who was your pitching coach that year? I know Charlie Fox.
Don McMahon.
Westrom. Who was it?
Don McMahon.
What do you remember
Don
about
McMahon,
him?
Oh, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. He taught me the cutter. He taught me how to throw the cut fastball. And Don was easygoing. I remember I threw a one-hitter against Montreal, and he took me down to the bullpen on my second day, and he goes, "You got to try to hit out here." I said, "Donnie," I said, "I threw a one-hitter. I mean, almost a no-no. I said, well, what are we working on here? How much better can we get so you can get a no-hitter?" I said, "Oh, okay, I understand." And that was how Don was. No, you can be better. You can be better. But Don, he was an amazing individual. He'd throw BP to the guys every day, and then he'd go and pitch in a game. And you're talking about guys having arm problems and being tired. This man was an animal.
You know, we had Al Downing on our show a while back, and he said that was a big difference too. He said we used to throw batting practice. He says pitchers don't throw batting practice today. He said it was good for your arm. He said it was good for your control. It was good for your, for your location.
Yeah, you had a choice. They gave you a choice. You could throw batting practice. Nobody wanted to take batting practice off of me, unfortunately. They didn't want to deal with 95, for BP, because I could only throw one way, hard. I didn't know any other way. Okay. So all my work was on the sideline, but there were guys that would throw batting practice to see and face hitters, because you got to train your eyes not to pick up on the hitter. Because if you pick up on the hitter, you become erratic. So a lot of guys wanted to throw with a hitter so they could see. And when I work on the sidelines, I always had a guy standing in either the left or the right side of the box. And that was always a good technique, and it helped. I was a little wild anyway, but to be very honest with you, I wasn't that wild. Charlie Fox wanted me to be a little wild because he knew I threw a lot of fastballs. And so my first game, he goes, "John, I want you to throw that fastball of yours up high up into the net on your first pitch and watch what happens." So I did. I threw it up, and actually I didn't hit the net. I hit the KSFO booth behind home plate. And you could hear him in the dugout going, "Oh my God. Oh, gee," you could hear him moaning over there. And that was my first. I went 4 2/3 innings against the Braves, and gave up 2 runs. But yeah, they were crying over there. And but that's how it worked.
I'm sorry. I remember watching you pitch against the Mets, even on a 19-inch black and white TV, and even back then it was like, I mean, you were far and above, like you were just so noticeably faster than the other pitchers. It was like I used to see, like when somebody made good contact on you, I was like, how did they do that?
How'd that happen?
It used to boggle. Yeah, it used to boggle my mind. I mean, yeah, you threw really hard. I mean, like I say, even back then on a little black and white TV, you can see it. You can see it.
Yeah.
So
I know. I used to say the same thing. How did he hit that ball? But it was a God-given talent, and I used to throw rocks in the canyon and behind the house. I'd get a 5-gallon bucket, one of those Home Depot buckets, and I would fill it up with rocks about the size of a baseball, and then I would throw them from one end of the canyon in the backyard to the other end of the canyon. And that's how I built a lot of strength. And then also working in a tuna fishing family, I was unloading boats quite a bit. And, so that's how I got really strong. And then I got into a decent weight training program because I was a football player, and they wanted me to protect myself. So I did weight training also, but not after I pitched, but before the season, and then I would just throw myself into shape, and it tended to work up. I only got hurt once. And you look at a lot of the guys today. They're getting 3 and 4 Tommy John surgeries. And 2 at least. And I just really think that there's too much emphasis on that lifting weights afterwards, and not enough legs being used. I'm a firm believer of that after what I'm seeing. So.
Right.
Why did Charlie Fox get fired that season?
There was a power struggle between Bobby Bonds and Charlie. Charlie was on Bobby because Bobby had problems with alcohol. And God bless his heart, he was a great friend, but he just could not control that. And Charlie was on him, and Bobby didn't like it. And so Bobby went up to Horace Stoneham and said either he goes or I go. And so they let him go. And Charlie was like, he was the guy who brought me to the big leagues. And Bobby came up to me. I remember Bobby walking up to me and says, "Hey, your daddy's not going to be here." And I was pitching the last game in San Diego. We were in San Diego, and I got the last game. Charlie gave me the ball. And he says, "Make it a good one for me, kid." And I knew right then and there they had already told him that he was gone. And
wow.
I won that game 6-2 and went 9. And sure enough, the next day Charlie was fired, and Wes Western came on board. And that was a sad day for me because Charlie was like a father to me, and he took care of me. He promised my mom that he would take care of me and look after me because I was a young kid. I was 21 years old, for crying out loud, and Charlie did. He took me to every Italian restaurant, I think, in the United States when we went everywhere, So, but then when I went to Montreal because of Charlie Fox, too. Charlie was the general manager there. So, and he was responsible for getting me in Montreal from San Diego for the Pentagon.
Did that strain your personal relationship with Bobby Bonds after that happened?
Not at all. Not at all. I understood. I had a lot of the older guys came up to me, and like Jim Barr and I were close, and Mike Caldwell, and they told me it's just part of the business. It's part of the business. There's going to be player manager struggles, and superstars will get their way every day. So you have to understand that. I said, well, yeah, but and Bobby came up to me later on too. He says, it just had to be done, John. It just had to be done. And I said, well, I'm just here to win games. That's all I want to do. I just want to win games. I thought Charlie was doing a pretty good job, and and I liked him. I was sorry to see him go.
You played for a couple other interesting managers. In Montreal, you played for Dick Williams. Later in Oakland, you played for Billy Martin.
Yes, I did. I got to play for those two, which was very interesting. Billy was great. I love Billy Martin. Dick Williams was interesting. He was a hard guy to play for. He demanded everything out of his players. I mean, he'd squeeze you to death, and didn't have any trouble calling you names or anything. And I almost got into it with Dick. Here I am, new guy on the team, and I'm almost punching Dick Williams' lights out, and on an airplane to boot, and yeah, and it and
what happened?
Later.
What was that all about?
Well, he wanted me to throw more fastballs, and Gary Carter was the catcher. Gary calls the game, so Gary's calling for my slider, and I had a pretty good slider. It was more like a curve slider combo. Well, Dick says, I didn't bring you up here to throw your bleepity bleep, 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 slider. I brought you up here to throw your 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and I want to see that. And then he called me the big C word. And I said, oh, that's a big mistake. And I got up, and I cocked my arm. I was ready to hit him right between the eyes, and his eyes got as big as silver dollars. And I went to go and punch him, and my arm wouldn't move. And all the teammates jumped on my back and, stopped me from hitting him. And later on, Dick called me in his office, and he apologized to me for that. And he said, by the way, we're keeping you for the playoff run. You're going to be on the team. I go, okay, that's cool. No harm, no foul. But that was Dick. And Dick was like that. And it just didn't do it to me. He did it to a lot of players. But you had to understand he was the manager. He was the guy. And Billy was just great. Made me feel at home, brought me, that's a funny story in its own right. I was with Atlanta, and I got sent down to Richmond, and they told me I was going to come to the big leagues if I'd win 3 games. Well, I won 3 games, but then this other kid, Pascual Perez, won 3 games too, but they were all shutouts. So he went before I did. And then I'm sitting there not being pitched anymore. And I got Johnny Sane. Get this. I got Johnny Sane is my pitching coach. What a bet. And you know where Johnny Sane would sit? He would sit in the bullpen. He would sit in the bullpen with us guys, and I sat there and picked his brain about pitching and about slowest, and the theory of getting ahead and don't give him your good stuff first. And he was such a joy to talk to, such a great man. And my brother runs into to Eddie Matthews is what happened. And Eddie was living in Del Mar, California at the time, and working for the Oakland A's. And Eddie asked my brother, he says, hey, how's your brother doing? He's in Richmond. He's in where? Richmond? What's he doing in Richmond? Hank sent him down? I said, yeah. My brother goes, yeah, he sent him down. He goes, look, let me call Billy Martin up. We need pitching. Let's see if we can use him. Well, 1 phone call, 2 phone calls. I get a phone call. Eddie says, call Hank up and tell Hank you want your release. So I call Hank and Hank Aaron, and Hank goes, I'll let you go only if they're going to put you in the big leagues. I said, because he says, we're using you next year. Just because you're in AAA right now doesn't mean we're not going to use you. We're going to use you next year. And I said, well, that's next year. I might not be around. He says, all right, you can have your release. So they gave me my release, and I hopped the plane, packed up all my stuff, hopped the plane, went over to went to San Diego, stopped there. My brother met me there, and he took all my dirty clothes. I had no clothes. He took my bag totally. I had no clothes at all. I figured I'd just get something up there, and flew up to Oakland, and Billy met me at the airport in his cowboy hat. And he handed me an envelope. He says, drive me to the ballpark, go buy yourself some things, and I'll see you at the park. Then you're going to go throw for Art Feller. So I go up there, and Art, hey, buddy, Art, great, easygoing country boy, and Art goes, all right, let's see what you got. Well, I had just pitched 2 days before. I was ready to go. So he put 2 guys in both boxes. He goes, throw in between there. I said, you guys better get helmets on. I've been known to be a little wild sometimes. I don't want to kill my teammates before. And they're going, Art, are you sure you want to do that? Just get in the box, son, Well, I was putting everything between both guys and with no problem at all, and throwing 95, 96, and let me see your slider, let me see your curveball, let me see your changeup. And he goes, okay, that's good. Go see Billy. You got your contract. I went, really? He goes, yeah. I walked down the field, walked up to Billy's office. He goes, "Sign on the dotted line, my son. You are an Oakland A." And I went, "Whoa, ain't that nice? Come from AAA, go to big leagues. Hey, that's cool. All right." And I was in uniform that night, sitting in the bullpen, and ready to go. And
wow.
Billy treated me good, treated me fair. Then he got fired, and then I got fired, because they got rid of all the Billy's guys. They got rid of everybody. And, so that's when the Steve Burrows, I guess it was Steve Burrows, came in and took over. And I was gone. And bouncing around again. And a lot of that had to do with the strike, if you remember, in 1981. 1981, I was a player representative with the California Angels when I played there. And we had a very nasty strike, and I confronted Gussie Busch with a serious question that really set the strike, to ending it. And I asked Gussie Busch, "Well, Gussie, it was a pleasure playing for you and everything, but did you get the okay to have interest in 6 major league ball clubs? Where'd you get that information?" A little birdie told me. "Is it true?" He says, "Yes, I have interest in 6 major league ball clubs." I said, "Well, isn't that kind of a conflict of interest?" And that was it. I was a dead man. Marvin Miller had the information. Marvin gave it to me. And he says, "You need to ask him about that. Nobody else wants to do it. You need to do it. And you got to do it for me." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then from that point on in 81, I got bounced around like a ping pong ball. They did the same thing to Dick Dietz. You remember Dick Dietz, catcher?
Yes. Yep. You want to know something? Go ahead.
1972. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to baseball players about this issue, and quite a few ball players have swear that they were blacklisted because of their union, the union affiliation.
Representative, affiliation. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was true. It was true. Because there was no way. See, and if you look back and you knew the history about Buzzy Bavasi did not like anything about the union at all. At all.
Most people in management don't.
Yeah, they don't. They don't, exactly. But yet they're out there signing guys to multi-year contracts, and I was one of them. I had a 4-year guaranteed contract on $1.6 million. Why are you getting rid of me when you need me? And the other thing is they made an illegal move during that strike. They weren't supposed to make any moves at all. That was the rule. But shortly after that, I got sent down to AAA ball.
In 1981?
In 1981, yep.
Wow.
And that was an illegal move. They were not supposed to send me down because we were on strike.
And they got away with it.
Oh, Buzzy got away with it. Yeah, and Marvin wanted to sue him, and I said, "No, you don't see baseball. I'm a baseball player. I don't sue. I don't bite the hand that feeds me." Well, the other way around bit you. The feeding part bit you back. And I said, "Yeah, I guess so, huh?" I said, I'll get back. And Marvin couldn't do anything about it because, Marvin's not an agent. He was the head of the Players Association. But, that's where it stood right there. And I bounced around for the next 3 years. And it was not fun. It was not fun. I lived out of a suitcase. It affected my marriage, everything. Yep.
Oh, that's terrible. Does Marvin Miller belong in the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marvin belongs in the Hall of Fame. Without a doubt. Marvin Miller did so much for baseball. not just for the increase in money. That came from TV. Marvin just made sure it was done right. You know, everyone thinks, well, Marvin made the salaries big. Well, Marvin didn't make the salaries big. Television made the salaries big. I went from making $12,500 a year, okay, to making 22, to making 42 on my third year, to making $500,000 in 77. It's like, are you kidding me? You know, it's like, that's unheard of. That's unheard of. And it was because TV came into VHS, video cassettes, all that came into play.
John, when did you meet Jerry Kapstein?
That was in 76. Yeah, 1976. He became my agent in 76, and that's why I made a 3-year, $500,000 contract, was because of Jerry Kapstein. And he was just starting out, and he had Bobby Gritch, Steve Garvey, Goose Gossage, and actually I was referred to Jerry by Goose. Goose and I played against each other as kids in the Midwest League, and we became very good friends. And Goss, you know, he always took care of me in some way, shape, or form, you know, and you know, we were just pals, just good buds. And he referred Kapstein to me, and also I had an agent prior to that name. His name was Ed Margolin, but he wasn't a listed agent. And Jerry was working for Ed because Ed had a lot of the giant players, and Jerry wanted to get into that stable, you know. And so that's how I met Jerry. And Jerry and I became very good friends, and he handled my contract till he became president of the San Diego Padres. And then I was referred to Bob Teef after that, who was Jerry's attorney.
Speaking of agents, who do you think is the best player agent out there today? Is it Boris, or is there anyone else who you're familiar with who you look at and you say, damn, that guy's a great agent? If I was a player today, that would be my guy.
Yeah, I like John Boggs. Now, John Boggs has Adrian Gonzalez, and he's out of San Diego. John Boggs is a Kapstein prodigy. Jerry brought him up through the ranks. He does the game very well, and he treats his players right. And, he does a lot of good for the players. There was a group out of Arizona, I forget, handled a lot of golfers. I forget the name offhand, but that operation was rather good too. And they handled a lot of baseball players. In fact, Chris Arnold used to work for this guy here in Arizona. It was Mech something or other. I forget the name, but anyway, you had the Dennis Gilberts who made their money. You had the guy that was with John Moore's, in the partnership, and kind of fell out of grace and disappeared. You don't see him anymore. But Steve Burroughs probably has got the biggest stable, but yet is so demanding to the ball clubs about what he wants his players to do and not to do, and to protect his interest more than protecting his player. You gotta let the player go out there. You gotta let the player play. And a lot of these things that are coming down about players not playing, get them out of the game, this Matt Harvey deal, that's all coming from Boros. It's all coming from Boros and the agents, protecting their interests. And that's where I think the game is getting lost, is in that aspect.
Yeah. Hey, quick question. You've probably been asked this in the past. but it's in a very basic question, but I think it's interesting. The best ball player you ever faced.
The best ball player I ever faced, probably Pete Rose. I also faced the Big Red Machine.
If we looked up Pete Rose's stats, was he just super tough on you? Because
no, he hit 300.
Baseball fans.
He hit 300, but he didn't hit a high 300. He hit actually just around 300. And for the amount of at-bats that I faced Pete, I thought I fared pretty good against Pete. But I did actually pretty good against the Reds. I threw a shutout against the Reds, which is rare. I went head-to-head with Tom Seaver and lost 1-0. And, things I can remember, but the guys that were tough were the guys like Dave Parker or the lumber company at Pittsburgh. You look at these things and you say, well, I wish I could have faced Willie Mays, but I did in spring training when we were throwing batting practice to the hitters, and Willie jumped in there, and I said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I threw 4 fastballs right by him. He goes, "That's it. I'm done. I can't touch this kid." And he didn't want any part of me. And Bobby Bonds jumped in next, and he couldn't hit me. And Charlie's back there chuckling away. And that's when I was 19 years old. I was 19 doing that. And
wow.
But I got to say Pete, because of the way he approached the game and the way he was a student of the game, and how he figured he probably knew more about me than I knew about him. When you're talking about, he knew what my weaknesses were and my strengths. So, but he was probably one of the toughest guys I faced.
Well, by the way, John, I just sent you a picture of a painting that somebody did for me recently of Pete Rose. Someone it's actually one of my ex-wives. She just started painting, about 3 months ago. And so I said, paint me something baseball themed. And she did a Pete Rose for me. So when you have a chance, I just sent you the photo. I took a picture of it. It's on my wall.
Okay.
Did
you send it to my fastball email?
No, I actually sent it straight through Facebook message. A Facebook message.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm in front of my computer, so I'll give it a look. I'll give it a look-see.
Okay. And so now talking about baseball players, talk about baseball players now.
Sure.
Who really opens up your eyes?
I've got a couple that I really like, that I think are consummate pros, that are really good. This kid in Houston, Altuve, great player.
Altuve.
Yeah, great player. I like him a lot. Just the way he plays. I'm also a big fan of Jake Lamb with Arizona. I've seen Jake when he first broke in. Jake he's tearing it up right now. He's not hitting over 300, but he's close to it. And he's starting to hit for power. He's tied with Goldschmidt for home runs and extra bases. He's right there with Paul Goldschmidt. And, it's like, this is his second year in ball. And, he's doing really well. But there's a couple of guys that I really like the way they handle themselves. And I like the kid, the first baseman at Chicago.
Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, Rizzo. I like Rizzo a lot. He plays hard, and he plays for keeps. And, he's not a bad hitter either. He's a pretty good hitter.
It's amazing he's been traded twice already, too.
Well, that was one career. Yeah, just once
right.
from San Diego to Chicago, but,
he started out in Boston. He was actually.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he was part of the Gonzalez trade.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as a throw-in. Are you ready for that? As a throw-in, and and then I like our friend that I did the picture of, Bryce Harper. I like him as a player. I don't like him attitude-wise, but I like him as a player. He's a great player, a great talent. And if the game was on the line, that's probably who I'd look at. Chris Bryant's another good player. I like the kid at third base in Colorado.
Arenado.
I'm going to tell you, I've seen a lot of great third baseman in my life. This kid ranks up there with Brooks, Nettles, all the great third base. Bando, you want to talk about great third basemen? He is unbelievable. He's like a Kirby vacuum cleaner and an accurate arm, and he hits home runs. Of course, he's hitting home runs in Colorado, but he also hits them every place else. And he is in the game. He's just a great player. He's probably one of my very, very favorites because he's playing on a team, in Colorado. It's not the easiest place to play. And yet he makes the best of it. And he knows his position rather well. Good player. So, and then I would save always the best for last. And I mentioned him earlier with Jake Lamb. Paul Goldschmidt. That kid is an unbelievable player. So easygoing, steady, hits for power, opposite field. He uses the whole field, knows his strike zone, great defense, just an all-around good leader, good clubhouse guy, just all-around good person. Does a lot of good things for the community. Yep.
He on a daily basis. Wayne and I are Yankee fans, but WFAN here in New York.
Right.
Because the Mets at this point,
sure,
just a better ball club than the Yankees. You get plenty of talk. I'm telling you, a day does not go by that Met fans don't call up and talk to Francesa and the other guys about the Mets making a move. As soon as
for
possible.
Paul Goldschmidt, yeah,
for Paul,
exactly. Right. And I hate to say it here, being in Arizona, it's going to happen eventually. It's coming around the corner. And it's almost inevitable that he should, it's going to be tough holding on to him. It's going to be really tough. But they locked him up to a good contract. But I think the beneficial needs of the Diamondbacks are that they go forth and seek others, and use him as the gathering gleam, as we would say, And New York's the way to go. If you want pitching, go get to Noah. Go get Noah and throw in a couple more,
What did you think of the Diamondbacks off-season moves, particularly signing Greinke and trading for Miller?
I like the Greinke move. It turned out to be so far so good. He got injured here the other day, but I thought that was a great move. I commend Dave Stewart and Tony La Russa for making that move. I don't know how they did it, but they got him to come here. And Shelby Miller, I thought at first was a good move, only because of the fact I look at the earned run average and how he went out there day in and day out and kept pitching, even though he was 3-13. I looked at that earned run average, and his earned run average was decent in a launching pad ballpark. And I thought Shelby was going to do well, but then I saw his mechanics, and they were a little bit messed up when he got here. And I think they're still messed up. And so I'm not too sure about that. And then having to give away what they gave away on top of it, which was their future, what they gave away. And giving away their spark plug in Inciarte. When Inciarte left, this team, he was their spark plug, their leadoff guy that he got on the base and made things happen. And that part, you know, who am I to say? But, you know, personally, I didn't like that trade. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
I thought it was a crazy trade. I was like, you know, I'm like, I don't know what Arizona was thinking. That was honestly, I mean, giving up Swanson and Blair and Inciarte was.
Yeah, that was way too much for Shelby Miller. Way too much. That's a $76 million salary too. And, you know, I just, I don't know. That's kind of hurting right now for them because they're hurting in the pitching department right now, and they really needed Shelby to come through to at least have a 1-2 punch, and that 1-2 punch is only a 1 punch. And the other guys are still struggling right now, and you know, they've got to get their act together here quick. You know, it's the second half of the season coming around the horn. They can turn it around, but I just think it's too late. I really do. It's my opinion. By the way, I like your wife's painting. She did a nice job.
Excellent.
It's kind of cool.
Thank you.
Kind of Picasso-ish. It's kind of Picasso-ish, huh? I should say Picasso. Picasso.
And you know what? You know what? She just started painting. I tell you what. In April, her boyfriend got her art lessons for her birthday, and so she just started painting in April. But she's very focused, and she's been churning out paintings like crazy. But I'm gonna tell her that she got a compliment from a real artist. She'll be very happy.
It's different. I like the Picasso methodology in it, and the medium she's painting, which is good. You know, is it watercolor? I can't tell, or is it oil?
Honestly,
watercolor.
I don't know. I'll have to ask her.
Yeah, it looks like oil. It looks like oil to me. But yeah, good job. Real good job. I like it.
Thank you. I'll tell her.
Yeah, please do.
John, thank you very, very much for coming on, and I would love for you to. We would love for you to come back on. You know, closer to the post. You know, when the postseason starts, so we can really talk today's baseball. It was great getting to know you. And
sure, absolutely.
That all's well with you, and that's we're thrilled.
Well, it was great being on with you, and thanks for having me on the show. I'm honored to be on your show, and I look forward to it. Just let me know when you want me back on. I'll be glad to come back on for you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, John. You have a great night.
All right, Wayne. You guys take care. Have a good one.
Take care, John. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, Craig, are you still with me, or did you take off as well?
I'm still with you.
Oh man, I'm not used to that. I'm used to you I'm used to you know talking to you and then
yelled at me.
get no answer.
I'm gonna stay on. Who wants to get yelled at? That was another fantastic guest.
Yeah.
Thank you, John D'Acquisto. We look forward to speaking with him again. Wayne will post on Facebook his website for the art. What is it? JohnD'AcquistoArt.com.
Yes. Well, anyone on Facebook who can see his stuff. He's got plenty of pages. Maybe that'll motivate you.
Now I'm getting Facebook.
Besides what's on his site that you looked at, he's got much more. So
he's a very good artist. Really good.
Well,
that's it for this week. Look forward to next week. Have a good week, everybody.
Have a good week, Craig. A pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'll be speaking to you soon. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.